Hello, it's me again. It's been a while that I've created a video with my own voice at least. I do post other people's videos that are interesting, with very interesting subjects. But today I'm just gonna rant a little bit about actually videos that I've been seeing. I remember I saw recently a video where Pam Bondi, the head of the Department of Justice, was questioned over Epstein, and basically what's the status, what you're going to do about the people on those on that list. And one thing I did notice, just like the creators of their videos, I mean there was a few of them, that she was always trying to get away from holding those people accountable. And it's surprising. It's surprising to me. Surprising and not surprising. Because I've noticed that has been the case with that list for the longest time. In no matter what administration, and no matter who's the head of the Department of Justice. That kind of shows you who's in charge. It's not them. Obviously, some entity behind the throne does not want things to explode. They're gradually letting it out. But that's because of the push by the people. It's a bit disturbing that the Department of Justice, or the so-called Department of Justice, because that should be easy. That should be easy peasy. What these people are on the list, they are known for this and that, then they need to go to jail. It's that simple. But as some of you already know, the justice system, any and every justice system, no longer represents justice, unfortunately. People need to start becoming aware of this. People need to start maybe even contacting their representatives. I don't even know if that even makes a difference, to be honest, anymore, because a lot of them are bought, and that's the sad thing. Very bought, very career versus justice oriented. Recently I noticed, I'm always curious. I've been busy, but I still get curious. I've noticed that a lot of federal judges have been appointed to their chair, to their, to being a federal judge. And I don't know if many of you know this, but they've been appointed by people in the Epstein list. What does that say about the judges? What does that say about federal judges in general? It's not good. It's not looking good. I see more and more and more corruption the more I look into this. If you go to Wikipedia and you type in any judge's name, and you see who appointed that federal judge, and you will discover that many judges were appointed by people in the Epstein list. That is amazing to me. I mean, seriously amazing. Now I understand why they are so corrupt. Now I understand, like in the case of, that I just mentioned, Pam Bondi. She's hired. It's in the title, Department of Justice. You're hired for that. You're not hired to play games with technicalities of words to try to, you're protecting perverts, real perverts. And I say real perverts because sometimes we label anybody a pervert nowadays, or a pervert. I don't know if that's even a word, because women do bad things too. But when you do a real, honest, and transparent investigation, that's an exaggeration. That's not really what you say or what he says or she says. No. But my bigger point is that why do we even have a Department of Justice, if you're not going to hold accountable people that are in a list that is known to traffic people, especially underage people? So many of many of the women that were real victims, and I say real, today, now, nowadays you have to say real because there's so many so-called victims out there that they're just hypocrites. They exaggerate. They delusional. There's a lot of delusion out there when it comes to victimhood. But again, Pam Bundy's job is to look into the face of these women that were victims from these very powerful people in the Epstein list and bring justice. I mean, wasn't that what they promised when they were campaigning? Wasn't that what Trump himself and the head of the FBI, and I keep forgetting his name, and I don't know, is he still the head of the FBI? I mean, I thought I heard he might resign. Again, I don't know. Maybe I misheard it. Maybe it's somebody else. The big thing here is that, again, the justice system sucks at every level, and you guys already know my experience. They seem to protect perverts, real perverts, and that's not right. Again, like some of you already know, I worked 13 years for the courthouse, the federal courthouse here in Chardon, in San Juan, Puerto Rico. But again, it's the U.S. federal, United States federal, present in Puerto Rico. And they seem to have the same spirit. They tend to protect the perverts, the real perverts, and blame everybody else, which is sad. We can see that with the Epstein list. We can see that, recently with Pam Bundy's interviews. Again, deflecting. I guess it's a universal problem, not just here in Puerto Rico, not just here at U.S. District Court of Puerto Rico and probation of Puerto Rico. It seems to come from the top. This corruption, this misuse of power, this abuse of power, this Marxist way of doing things. If Marxism is actually practiced that way, I don't know. I mean, I've never lived in a Marxist country. Nowadays, you can't believe everything you hear in America because they lie so much. Now you question everything. One thing that I also noticed as well, and this was, I can't remember the guy's name. I saw a video on YouTube, and he's always talking about the situation for men, in relationships, and how the court system, is evil towards men, etc. Again, the court system. But I know he mentioned, and he was right, that there are a lot of females on the Epstein list, but they're not mentioned as much or at all, to be honest. He mentioned names I did not even know at all that were actually on these on that list that recently was declassified. Of course, it was very, very redacted, but there were a lot of females in there, a lot of females that were contributing to the problem, not victims, but were contributing to the problem. We all know Ghislaine Maxwell. She was the main provider of minors. But we keep saying Epstein. Why not Ghislaine as well, especially since she is still around? And, I can't remember the guy's name now. I know he's an older, bald guy, but pretty much like me. But the thing is, he was right. We keep mentioning men's names in the Epstein list, but not women's names, which is, again, part of the agenda. Like men are evil, women are good, no matter what they do. No, that's not true. I remember years ago, in the 90s, I believe it was, Gloria Trevi, she provided Andrade, I believe was the producer's name, in Mexico. She provided a lot of young girls to this pervert, alleged pervert. Because again, I was not there, I did not see these things. It's nowadays it's very difficult to believe anything anymore. But I do remember those reports back in Florida. Gloria Trevi provided young girls to Andrade. She was the key provider. Why did we minimize her role in this and only focused on the guy? Again, I see a very misogynist society nowadays where we tend to cover up the evils of a female, but not the evils of a man. A man could probably do even, you know, a quarter of what women do and get in trouble a lot harder or harsher. And again, the few that know me, that's what essentially happened to me. Because again, I worked 13 years at the courthouse here in Puerto Rico, the U.S. federal courthouse. And girls did a lot of things to me. They offered me sex. They joked around sexually. They described to me how they wanted me to do it to them. Some showed me blowjob type porn on their phones during work hours from their work phone. Text messages, with naughtiness. And despite the fact that most of it I did reported to HR in probation, crickets. It's like if nothing happened. But again, a guy just comments and all hell breaks loose. Comments, even private comments, which were, that was my case. My comments were private between me and another person, that's it. But hey, that's the justice system I'm seeing today. And Pam Bundy is reconfirming it. The Department of Justice is reconfirming it. Not only that, I remember, even during the Biden administration, I mentioned this before, there were drugs in the White House. The entire federal system is corrupt. How do you find, and here's the big kicker. They kidnap Maduro. Again, I'm changing the subject a bit. I'm bouncing from sexual perversion to drugs, just the corruption overall in the federal government. They kidnap Maduro, which to me, that should be a violation of international law. That's terrorism, in my opinion. Then they're stealing their oil and selling it forward. That's thievery. If I steal my neighbor's stuff, I go to jail. But I guess Trump, because kidnap. If I kidnap my neighbor, would I go to jail? Then why doesn't Trump? If I steal their stuff and resell it, I go to jail. Why doesn't Trump? Again, this is federal. This is a horrible federal example to the people. It's beginning to rain outside. It's just disturbing. These times are very disturbing. And it's weird because they kidnapped Maduro because of drugs, fentanyl particularly. Well, hey, FBI, especially here in Puerto Rico, in Chardon Avenue, there's a lot of caseríos. And you all know there's drug dealers in these places. Why won't you kidnap them? If you're really concerned about the people. Again, I linked the FBI with the president because ultimately he, or the FBI reports to the president, I assume. And it's all part of the federal system. So again, if you kidnap a head of state, which to me it's in violation of international law. I don't know. I'm not an expert on international law, but I think it is. Because if Putin kidnapped Trump, I think we would have a problem with that. Let's just be honest. Or China kidnapped Trump, I think we would have a huge problem. But I guess the real bully, the real terrorist of the world, the United States, can do that. My bigger point here is, again, if we're truly concerned about drugs, maybe we should first clean house. Like the White House, when they found cocaine in the White House during the Biden administration, which many suspect is Hunter Biden's crack or cocaine. I can't remember, to be honest. But I know there was drugs. One of the most secure buildings in the world. Oh, but let's go after Maduro. Let's not go after Biden. Let's not go after Hunter Biden. Let's go after Maduro. And again, if we really cared, FBI, here in Chardon, which to me, you guys are just useless pigs. I mean, honestly. You would kidnap every drug lord in Puerto Rico, because there's plenty of them. But you're not doing a job. You're not doing a good job. You're just doing paperwork. And you're just targeting, like it's typical. It's very typical of the federal government. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I end up in jail eventually for speaking these facts. Because these are facts. This is not emotion. This is not revengeful point of view, I've always thought this way for many years, actually. And again, when you don't suck up to the system, you are removed. So much inclusivity there, so much constitutional that you have the right to have an opinion that's not necessarily popular. So much for that, federal judges. So much for that. There is no real constitution. That's a lie. Not anymore. It's a lie. It's a total lie. You can't have an opinion. The only opinion you can have is the opinion of the masses. America supposedly is different, but no, it's Marxist. If you go to Cuba and you have an opinion different from the regime, you will end up in jail. In the United States, you get fired. But again, it's the same exact behavior. And eventually, some people do get, actually, in America, put in prison. But it's very sad, honestly. It's very sad that Pam Bundy is actually protecting these sick people instead of actually getting them arrested. Of course, she can't get them arrested because she might actually end up arresting President Trump and ex-President Clinton and many other big politicians in America and outside America's, including our greatest allies. I remember one video also mentioning, and again, this is the justice system for you. Corey Feldman mentioned, and I remember listening to him decades ago, how Hollywood is sick. They're perverts. And how he was interviewed by local police, how he gave names, specific names of specific perverts that actually did bad things to young people in Hollywood. But then he said he noticed, this is Corey Feldman, he noticed that the cops, or the system, the justice system at the time, was more focused on Michael Jackson, trying to find something on Michael Jackson. They just needed to find something on Michael Jackson. They didn't care about the real perverts that actually did something to minors. Even that Macaulay Culkin, I saw videos of him, even younger than now, saying, "No, Michael didn't do anything to us. He just played video games with us. We hang out. Michael didn't have much of a childhood. I guess he was trying to relive, or his childhood, or some of it, or recreate, or reconstruct." But even one of the accusers that accused Michael of inappropriate behavior, even he eventually said, "No, he really did not do anything to me. It was my parents that wanted money." But again, my bigger point here is that the so-called justice system were so focused on Michael from allegations, but real victims were ignored once again. Like Pam Bundy's ignoring, like the court, the courthouse here in Puerto Rico, the U.S. District Court, same thing. Because how is it that a woman can, offer me sex, but she gets to keep her job? If I do something much less than that, like comments, or maybe just be nice, niceness nowadays for a guy could also be considered detrimental to your career. But again, Corey Feldman was ignored by the authorities at the time, by the investigators at the time. All these women that are, again, seeking justice from those individuals in the Epstein list, they're also being ignored and dismissed. Also. Just like I myself was dismissed many, many, many times in the courthouse, U.S. District Court of Puerto Rico. I guess you can't trust human resources, basically. So once again, it's disgusting. I've written them letters, it's been, 3 years almost now, since my disconnect from the courts. I've written many, basically the same letter with all my bad experiences to many federal entities. Recently, I sent it to the Department of Justice here in Puerto Rico. I can't remember the guy's name now, but he was one of the big guys. It wasn't the head of the Department of Justice because I couldn't find his email. I might actually have to print it and send it to him, via regular mail. Come on, guys. If you're the head of the Department of Justice of Puerto Rico, become available. I did create I submitted a little message, they're not gonna call. They're not gonna care. They're probably aware of my existence and of my situation and of my concerns. They're probably aware and been aware for years, but they don't care. Like Bundy doesn't care. Like the justice system, again, when Corey Feldman expressed real victims, they don't care. It's disgusting. Truly, truly disgusting. But once again, people become aware. Open your eyes. Eventually, you might want to, again, start out writing to your representatives, but I don't think that matters. I don't think that's gonna do anything. Maybe eventually, I don't know, just go in front of the, whatever state you live in, go in front of the courthouse, go in front of the White House, go in front of Congress, whatever, and protest seeking, again, justice for all of these victims, because they're real victims. They're not make-believe victims, especially those ladies from the Epstein list. And once again, I'm just amazed. The entire federal system is corrupt from top to bottom. And even if you did not do anything directly, you're still kind of guilty by association. Because again, I've seen that a lot. I've seen a lot of men, for example, if you end up in a picture where there's a big bad person in front of the picture and you're in the background, you didn't even know that person was bad. Well, you are guilty, and I've noticed that. Look it up, Google it, or ask ChatGPT. What does it mean to be guilty by association? Well, all those powerful people in the federal government that have been appointed by somebody that's in the Epstein list, well, you're kind of guilty by association. And again, if we're going to use it for some people, we have to use it for all people. I know the federal government sometimes uses it. They're the ones that primarily use it to cables. Oh, this is a mop, a brand new mop. That represents to me how we need to clean up the federal system, no matter where they're at. And this could also apply to many other countries. But right now, since I'm living in Puerto Rico and I'm part of the U.S. federal court system, that has been imposed on us because we're a colony. We've been occupied, so it's not like we're treated equally. Again, so much inclusivity, but we can't even vote for the president of the United States here. Go figure that one out. But again, Pam Bundy, I'm surprised that you're protecting sick people. I'm surprised and not surprised, that the women on that list are barely ever mentioned. And I'm not talking about the victims. I'm talking about, again, perpetrators. Just like Gloria Trevi years ago for Andrade, she provided young girls for that pig. Well, Ghislaine, yeah, she's still alive. She's in prison. But guess what? Mention her often. Mention her as often as Epstein's name, as Jeffrey's name is mentioned. Because it wasn't just Jeffrey. And if it wasn't for Ghislaine, Jeffrey would have no victims. See, we completely ignore that. Women are evil too. Women also misbehave grossly, like many of you guys already know. My experience at the courthouse here in Puerto Rico, the federal courthouse, a lot of whores offering me vagina, which, I'm going to be honest, it was very tempting. I'm a guy. Hey, it's very tempting. But HR doesn't care when a woman does something gross or disgusting. They only care when a guy does it. And I will keep repeating that to the day I die. And that's not right. That shows misogyny when it comes to the interpretation of law, of their canons and policies, etc. Not to mention, like I've mentioned many times, how the gay community openly criticizes God, religion, and the Bible. That is very disgusting too, and they know it. HR know it in probation. They don't care. They don't care. And again, we seem to focus on the person we want to get in trouble. The Corey Feldman confessions to the police of the big names in Hollywood that were true perverts, young actors that Corey acted with back in the 80s were molested. by a lot of big executives in Hollywood. But no, the justice system didn't care. They cared more on Michael Jackson because he was a target. For whatever reasons, they wanted to target Michael. Same thing happened with me here at the courthouse in Puerto Rico, federal courthouse in Puerto Rico. They targeted me. They had plenty of information on many other people. I know that because I myself went to HR, not just up in probation, even in district. I would tell them things. They didn't care. All they care about is targeting the specific person they don't like. That's not justice. And that's not how you administer justice. It should be administered equally across the board to everyone. But hey, I should not be surprised because a lot of, again, the spirit of those in the Epstein list trickles down. They name or appoint a judge. And guess what, judge? Whoever you are, whether you were appointed by Trump, whether you were appointed by Clinton or any other one on the Epstein list, you know what? Your appointer is a disgusting person. And obviously you're not going to go against your master, the one that gave you your sweet job. Again, a huge conflict of interest here. That's why justice is no longer justice. That's why countries can blackmail politicians internationally because of the Epstein list and lists of similar nature. Why? Again, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of power, particularly money. So no judge is going to say, hey, Trump, you need to go to jail because of what you did. Hey, actually, I can't do that. He appointed me. Yeah, my career is more important than justice. That's what the justice system is. That's what these judges, these federal judges are. They're pigs. They don't care about justice, true justice. They just play with technicalities and call that justice. But it's shameful. Again, I wrote a letter to many federal agencies that I believe could help me. I mean, it wasn't just everybody, you know. I did not send a letter to Customs or Border Patrol, you know, which I don't think has anything to do with it. I even sent it to the Supreme Court of the United States recently. My letter, the same letter I sent Judge Helpy, the same letter I sent HR here in Chardon, just reminding them. They already had that letter. I keep reminding them of their corruption. I keep reminding them of their dismissal, of their negligence, of their incompetence, of their evil, of their moral inconsistency. And I'm going to keep reminding them. If any of you are listening, I'm going to keep reminding you. I'm going to fax you. Like recently I sent Ada a fax of how horrible those women are. Yes, horrible. But she's not going to care. She's not going to care. Why? Because she's a feminist. Feminists don't care. Idiots don't care about true justice. Idiots don't care. You know, women stick together way more than men do. See, way more. Men also stick together at times when it's money. See, right now, nobody from the courthouses, you know, old friends, they're not contacting me. Why? Because they know their rice and beans is on the line. Money, again, it all goes back to money. These are hypocrites. These are hypocrites. Money is more important than justice, than true friendship, etc. And hey, I understand. They're cowards. I understand that. That's how you're supposed to work at the courthouse. You're supposed to be a coward. That's why what we have in Washington, that the lobbies control our politicians, it has to do with cowardness. Why? Because you might get shot out of existence, or no funding for your next campaign, or no money, or they ruin your career one way or another. It all comes down to money. Not justice, money. So again, I'm disappointed on Pam Bundy. She's protecting perverts. She's actually dismissing these innocent women that Epstein hurt. And Ghislaine. We have to also mention the bad women that were involved. And it's sad. I mean, honestly, eventually I have a feeling people are going to have to rise and make their voice known the more I guess aggressive way, for lack of a better word. I mean, I don't believe in violence, but I do believe that you should stand in front of that building, any building, with signs and protest. Protest. Hey, we're not being heard. We're being ignored. We're being dismissed, etc. But again, this entire system is corrupt. This entire system is based on perverts, appointees by perverts, and people love money more than they love justice. People love money more than they love truth. Pam Bundy is almost the equivalent of HR nowadays here at U.S. District Court of Puerto Rico. Yeah, they evade the bigger questions. They don't investigate the bigger fish. They don't do that. Like Pam Bundy, if you see her interviews, when they ask her a question, she's trying not to answer it. She doesn't want to answer it. She does not want to get her bosses in trouble. Same thing here at U.S. District Court of Puerto Rico. HR, whether it's Agnes or Yarisi or whoever, they're not going to ask the big questions on the big fish that have done worse or have a worse history and behavior. No, they don't want that. They don't want that. Their agenda is more important. Propaganda is more important. Feminism is more important. Me Too is more important. The Me Too movement, which, again, all men are bad, women are all sweet and innocent. That's all they care for. Justice is the last thing, if it's even on their list, which I doubt. And they're all cowards. They're all money cowards. Sad to say. So for the Pam Bundys at U.S. District Court and U.S. Probation, you guys are a disappointment. You guys only investigate whoever you want to get rid of. It's more like a setup. Because if you actually did care for justice, you would investigate everybody. You guys have my list. I've sent it to you guys many times, and you guys keep ignoring it. Just like Corey Feldman was ignored by the justice system in his time. Just like right now, Pam Bundy is ignoring, providing justice for these women that have been hurt by those men and women in the Epstein list. Again, that's what you guys are good at. That's what you guys are good at. That's what the federal system, the entire corrupt, perverted system, the entire system is good at just evading true justice. And they only target those that they don't like, and others, well, don't do it again. It's almost like a form of blackmail. It's almost like a setup, As long as you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. That's what it feels like to me, unfortunately, and it's very sad. But again, these judges are all appointed by pedos, so they're guilty by association, and of course they're not going to hold them accountable because it'll be a conflict of interest. He scratched my back, now I have to scratch his type game, you see? That's very sad. That's very sad, people. So again, I haven't posted something in a while. Eventually I might stop posting. Eventually I might add more or just change completely the subject. But that is my concern. And anybody here that's listening, anybody intelligent, we need to clean the federal system from top to bottom. But I know that's not going to happen. They're just too corrupt. And you guys are so much money lovers, you're not going to even try. You're not going to even try. Because your career is more important than justice. Judges, human resources, heads of departments, you guys don't care. All you guys care for is covering up all the bad behavior, especially from the women. Again, that's what you guys are good at. You become good at covering up, not administering justice. It's called the Justice Department, but it should be called the Cover-Up Department, or the let me become incompetent here because it's not convenient for us to get this person in trouble or that person in trouble, etc. For whatever reason. So again, people, it's sad. The Department of Justice in the United States at all levels is just pure corruption. Just look at who appointed them, Look at their history. Judges used to be attorneys, and attorneys, they're known for lying, corrupting, manipulating, etc., etc., etc. And now they're called honorable. After all those years of being pigs as attorneys, now they're honorable. That's amazing. You know, that's amazing. But well, it is what it is, and that's the world we live in. And good luck. I do not want to go back to the federal system. I remember Michael Henry mentioned to me, he is an employee at the federal level for the courts. He mentioned I might be blacklisted if I continue complaining about what was done to me. It's amazing that he told me that. Really, you know, the search for justice can get me blacklisted. That is amazing. That sounds like corruption to me. You know, blacklist, that happened, that should happen in other countries, supposedly, in China, Cuba, I don't know, Russia. That's where supposedly you get blacklisted. Not in America, especially in the justice system. That's amazing. Really, really, really amazing. Disturbing and disgusting. So again, when I send these letters out there, I'm not seeking to be rehired by the courts. I don't even want to go back to any federal agency at all. So I don't care if I'm blacklisted. I want to make that clear. People might be thinking, no, I don't want to go back to that disgusting place. If females are going to continue to offer me vagina and HR is not going to do nothing, no. Because, hey, they put me under temptation and I'm married. They do. I'm a dude. I'm not God. I'm not made of steel. But again, that's a toxic workplace because that should not exist at a workplace. Women should not, again, the U.S. District Court of Puerto Rico, women should not be naughty and get away with it. That's not a healthy work environment. That is toxic, there and anywhere else. But let me tell you one thing. I've worked in many places since 1985, and I've never seen a more perverted, especially the women, I've never seen a more perverted place than U.S. District Court of Puerto Rico and probation, the federal. I emphasize that, the federal, not the state, the federal system. Never have I seen so many perverted women. Never. In any case, if anybody, you know, with a channel that wants to interview me, hey, put a comment. I'll give you my number and you can interview me. You know, I don't mind showing my face because once again, I don't care to be blacklisted. I don't care to go back to the federal government. I don't. It's so disgusting. I just don't want to go back. I really, 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 really don't. Well, till next time.